It's like I was telling you before about the solar hot water heating. It paid for itself in 2 years, and after that, it's all savings. How many other investments can I make that pay for themselves in 2 years? So the fact that we're not using, that we use a lot less energy off the grid, in itself probably doesn't help the environment. Costa Rica is mainly renewable energy anyway. So this is more of a financial move.
Costa Rica has made some great headway in the renewable energy area.
Yeah, I mean, with some problems, but nothing's,
Sure.
a lot of it's hydroelectric, which has its own problems, and there's some geothermal and there's some wind. When they run out of all that, they move to diesel. They just
Sure.
use diesel generators. I would be hard-pressed to think that the electricity that we don't use here, because of these solar panels up there, saves a liter of diesel. When you think of it, it doesn't. Either you need it or you don't. If you need if you're just a little bit over, that diesel plant that you fire causes the same emissions, whether the generator, whether you're pulling 1 kilowatt off 500,000 kilowatt generator, or whether you're using that whole plant to capacity.
So why do it? Why do you do it then?
It pays for itself in 2 years, and after that, it's pure profit.
I see. So there's that aspect of it, the business aspect, works fine.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, there's no, and yet for all these certification schemes, you end up getting points for it. And yeah, and if everybody did it, it could make a big difference in the impact. But everybody's not doing it, and it really, as a practical matter, we're talking 80% of the hot water is solar, and 20% is electricity. One of the really bad things about the certification schemes, when they're greenwashing or just phony in some way, there's a lot of bad things about them. But one of the really worst things about them is that it ends up making all the staff cynical, because they're not fooled. I mean, there are hotels here that have these very high certifications in rainforest, in hilly rainforest. This is a flat rainforest, so we've got to dig a well. It doesn't have to be very deep and pump the water out. But in rainforests where you have a lot of gradient, and you get these rivers that just will never quit. So you take your water out. You take your water out of the river, and you purify it. But some of the as I was telling you, a lot of the ecotourism standards were written by copying what Stan Selengut did in Maho Bay on St. John's, the American Virgins, where water is extreme shortage of water. And so he's got a water meter on every room, and they read it all the time, and he really keeps track of how much water is being used. So they blindly copy that, and there are rainforest hotels where the water is just flowing out of a river. They use a tiny percentage of that water. Most of the water goes on, it just bypasses the whole thing and goes on to the ocean. They could keep all the faucets open 100% of the time, and it would have no ecological impact whatsoever, long as it was cold water. And yet they spend a lot of money and a lot of time on having a water meter for every room, and that people reading these water meters all the time and documenting it, because it's part of the certification scheme.
Here in Costa Rica.
Yeah, and it just makes the staff cynical.
Absolutely.
About the whole thing.
Why is that? Is it a bureaucracy thing, or?
Yeah, it's a bureaucracy thing. It makes a lot of work for certifiers, for certification consultants. A big push for this has been the big international development funding organizations. They want to be able to fund tourism projects as a development engine in the third world. but they're worried about getting criticized when somebody finds out that the project is putting raw sewage into the river or something like that. And so they need to put some distance between them and the certification of the project. So they have put out a lot of money to organizations like the Rainforest Alliance for them to do certification schemes. So then when they do a project and it's putting raw sewage in the river, they can say, oh, but the Rainforest Alliance gave it its highest certification. And part of the problem is, who ends up in these certification part of the certification experts? A lot of them are failed business people who couldn't tell. So I mean, they have sort of a vested emotional interest in other businesses failing.